Alright, in lesson 1.9 we're talking about dividing decimals. So our objective is to be able to solve problems by dividing them. Let's look at our first example. Dividing by a whole number, a class of 27 students held a picnic. They purchased food and drink for the picnic for a total cost of $93.15. What was the price of each student's meal? So since we're looking for prices of equal meals, we are going to need to divide. And to get an idea of if our answer will be reasonable at the end, let's take a guess. So 93 and 15 hundredths, or $93.15, that's close to $90. And 27 is close to 30. So using compatible numbers, 90 divided by 30, that's 3. So our answer should be around 3. So let's take a look at when we divide here. So we put everything in this box. And remember that we have a divisor, a dividend, and a quotient. And our dividend is the number that we are dividing. Our divisor is what's doing the divisor. So if you are a swimmer, you swim. If you are if you're a ball player, you play ball. Here our divisor is dividing. And then our quotient is the answer to a division problem. So when we look at 93 and 15 hundredths divided by 27, well, they've already done the work, but we need to plug in our quotient up here. So let's figure out 27 goes into 93. Well, they said 81. Well, 27, and this is where you would kind of need to be doing some guess and check. So 27 times 3, well, 3 times 7 is 21, KR2. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So this is our number up here. And this is kind of also a good idea when we do our estimate. Well, 3. So that means our whole number should be starting with kind of what our guess is going to be. So 3 goes in, or 27 goes into 93 3 times, which gives us 81. So we subtract. 3 minus 1 is 2. 9 minus 8 is 1. All right. Now we bring down our 1. And 27 goes into, now we divide, it's like we're dividing this again down here. 27 goes into 121. Well, we know it's got to be more than 3, so let's try 4. So 27 times 4. 4 times 7 is 28, here R2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus R2 is 10. So here we go. 27 goes to 121 4 times. And that's 108. We subtract, we get 13, and then we bring down our 5. Well, let's try, we know it's got to be more than this, 135, so we have to have, let's try 27 times 5. 27 times 5, 5 times 7 is 35, carry our 3. 5 times 2 is 10, plus our 3 is 13. There we go. 135 minus 135 is 0, so that means that we're done. Once we get to 0 at the end, we're done dividing. So each student's meal costs, and now one thing I didn't bring or talk about before is the decimal point right here. We just brought that straight up into our quotient. So it goes right above exactly where it is. So each student's meal costs $3.45. And so we check for our reasonableness. $3.45 or 3 and 45 hundredths is reasonable since it is close to our estimate of 3. Let's take a quick check. You try these, pause this, and then we'll check here in a second. Alright, so for quick check 1A, we need to find what 385 and 6/10 divided by 8 is. So again, remember that we need to, I can't do all this right in this little space, so I'm going to find my white space. Well, I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to rewrite it correctly this time. So 385 and 6/10 divided by 8. And 8 goes into 38. Well, I'm going to have to think, well, 8 times 4 is 32, so that's as close as I'm going to get without going over. So 8 minus 2 is 6. 3 minus 3 is 0, so I'm done with that one. So I bring down my 5, and 8 goes into 65 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. I subtract, and I get 1. Now, I bring down my 6, and now when I bring down my 6, I see my decimal point right here. Remember our previous example? This decimal point goes straight up into our quotient, as long as I haven't moved anything else prior to. So, and we'll talk about that into the next example. So I bring down my 6, and 8 goes into 16 2 times, and so 8 times 2 is 16. I subtract, I get 0, so I'm done. So my answer would be 48 and 2/10. Now for B, find 9.12, 9 and 12 hundredths divided by 6. So again, I'm going to rewrite this down into some white space so I have space to work. There's nothing wrong with getting some scratch paper to do this if we didn't have the space down below. And so 6 goes into 9 once. So 6 times 1 is 6. I subtract, I get 3. Now I'm going to put my decimal point straight up into my quotient right away, right now. And I'm going to bring my 1 down. 6 goes into 31 5 times. I have 30. I subtract, and I get 1. I bring down my 2. 6 goes into 12 twice. 6 times 2 is 12. I subtract, I get 0, and I'm done. So my answer would be 1 and 52 hundredths. So here's where what I talked about when we have decimal points. We need to work with those when we divide, because you could have a number that has a decimal point divided by a number that has a decimal point. So let's look at how we work that. So find the quotient. Remember, that's our answer to a division problem of 9 and 674 thousandths divided by 7/10. So I have a decimal point right here, and I can't, it gets messy when we do that. So I'm going to move my decimal point in my divisor over 1, so I am dealing with a whole number. And whenever I do that, I need to do the same thing to my dividend. And the reasoning is, since the divisor has 1 decimal place, I'm going to multiply that by 10 so that the divisor is a whole number. Now, if this was 74 hundredths, then I'd move it twice, and that means I'd have to essentially multiply it by 100. And whatever you do to your divisor, you need to do that to your dividend the same way. So when we look at this, it's been rewritten already over here that I'm dealing with a whole number in my divisor, 7, and it's already been moved over my decimal point. We moved it over already, and then this one was right between our 9 and our 6, and it got moved over right here. So let's now look at 7 goes into 9. Well, 7 goes into 9 once. We get 7. We subtract, we get 2. Now we bring down our 6. 7 goes into 26 3 times, and we get 21. We subtract 6 minus 1, we get 5. 2 minus 2 is 0, so we don't have anything here. We bring down our 7. 7 goes into 57 8 times, and we get 56. We subtract, we get 1, and we bring down our 4, we get 14. 7 goes into 14 twice. 14 minus 14 is 0. So my final answer, and you should see that decimal point right here, but our final answer is 13 and 82 hundredths. Now let's take a look at our quick check for this section. Go ahead and try this and pause, and we'll check here in a second. Alright, so for quick check, you have $2.75. You want to buy trading cards that cost 25 cents each. How many can you buy? Well, we need to set this up into a problem. Right now we have a couple numbers. What am I dividing the other one by? Well, I have a total cost of this, or I have this much money, and each thing is going to cost that much. So I'm going to divide up my money by how much each thing costs. So $2.75 divided by 25 cents. Now, again, when we divide this, I need to move my decimal point over twice. So let's get our nice little moving dots. So I bring my decimal point 1, 2 over here. So decimal point moves twice, and then this one moves 1, 2 right here. Now, it's going to be a good habit that when you move your decimal point at that point right then, that you bring your decimal point straight up into your answer, into your quotient space. So now we can say 25 goes into 27 once, and we get 25. And I subtract, and I get 2. And I'm going to bring down my 5. 25 goes into 25, well, once. We get 25, subtract, and we get 0. Now I have that decimal point. I could say, well, it would be 11.0, but we aren't buying partial cards, so our final answer would just be 11 cards. Alright, and that's the end for lesson 1.9, dividing decimals.